Reflection on what is a child, parental perception and children protection. In Module 2, we will reflect on what is a child. Among this, we will focus on stereotypical vulnerabilities and cultural and personal roots shaping actions and representation of children. In the effort to answer this question, many would say that children are little people who bomb you with questions that do not seem to have an ending and look at you with these big eyes full of innocence. Others would approach the question in a more behavioral way, answering that children like to play, go to school, and ask constantly for candies. Most people would also agree that children cannot cover their basic needs by themselves. That's why they are dependent on their parents. These statements encapsulate the essence of childhood in this modern era, recognizing that children are different from adults, spend their day in different ways than adults do, and may have different needs. But what about children in the past? If we had a time travel machine and went back to the pre-industrial ages to pose this question, what do you think the answer would be? What may have changed between those centuries? Not human psychology. Children would still be born in a small body that develops and changes radically throughout the first years of life. But what was a child supposed to do? Well, children at that time did not have smartphones for sure. Childhood did not even exist as a concept the way we perceive it nowadays. Children were treated as miniature adults. They didn't even know their birthday nor their accurate age. Children over 7 were considered self-efficient and wore the same clothes with the adults in medieval paintings. Children in pre-industrial epoch would perform many chores in household, offering a lot this way to family economy, and others would work in agriculture, in stock farming, or they may be servants. Setting the same question some centuries ahead, what was a child's role during the times of Industrial Revolution that changed human history once and for all? Putting it simply, industrial development was a catalyst for the change in the way we see childhood. To begin with, industrialization created the need for cheap labor. Children who could not stand up for their rights were the perfect candidates for this position. Let's see a video. The difference is that during the Industrial Revolution, the working conditions were extremely harsh and dangerous. This fact, combined with the formation of big cities around industrial centers, made exploitation more visible as maltreatment did not take place in an isolated rural area but in front of the public eye. It was not only industrialization that affected attitudes towards childhood. A few centuries earlier, John Locke, one of the most influential thinkers of Enlightenment, with his theory about children, was among the first to set the base for this change. What John Locke claimed was that parents and teachers should instill moral principles to children which are considered tabula rasa, meaning that they came to this world with an empty mind that we adults can fill. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, another philosopher of Enlightenment, in his book Emile or On Education, emphasized on the importance of educating children for forming effective citizens. One subsequent figure, among others, that had drawn attention towards children was Freud. The father of psychoanalysis claimed that the first years of life may play a critical role in forming the later adult personality. The role of children had begun to change. Despite this progress, the life of millions of children was endangered or taken in the first half of the 20th century. During World War II, Nazis killed 1.5 million of Jewish children and thousands of Romanian as well as German ones who represented disability. The end of the war found children of Europe in inhuman life conditions. To help more vulnerable members of society, the Organization of United Nations created an agency that provided the fundamental care to children suffering from World War II. In 1959, the United Nations adopted the Declarations of the Rights of the Child, which determines the fundamental rights of children. According to this list, all children should have access to have a safe shelter, health services, protection, education, and food. Among the most important achievements towards this direction are the prohibition of children's labor, the compulsory education, and the legislation of children protection. Children protection from the dangers of adult world. In this modern era, infants and toddlers are viewed as the most vulnerable members of the family, needing parental protection from the dangers of the adult world, guidance and care. The negatively colored term, parentified child, used in psychology, defines a child who has undertaken too many responsibilities that their parents could not fulfill. Excessive literature and research have defined the most efficient pedagogic methods for discipline and supervision. Parenting has become a commodity, and children are no longer an economic asset for the household, but they are a symbol of family happiness and marital fulfillment. Socially, they encapsulate the hope for future social change and progress. Despite this progress, 1 out of 5 children around the globe still lives under conditions of extreme poverty, and 6 out of 10 infants drop out during primary school years. In 2014, 1 million children suffered from abuse. Apart from the financial and social inequalities, there is one more factor that makes childhood different across the planet, and that is culture. As an example, in many traditions, girls may get married under the age of 10, 12 years old and move to their husband's house to take care of him and his parental family. The idea of childhood was invented, and what we now think of as childhood would not have made sense to our ancestors. To sum up, it was not before the 19th century that childhood was established as a separate stage across lifespan. The essence of childhood varies across different areas and cultures. As Philip Aries said, the idea of childhood was invented, and what we now think of childhood would not have made sense to our ancestors. From the extreme exploitation of children during the Industrial Revolution, we have passed into a child-centered era in Western societies. By Googling the word children, we can now see happy, enthusiastic, and spontaneous children dressed in colorful clothes, playing carefree in the sun. Or those rosy-cheeked babies with tiny cute feet. But since attitudes change, what would be the future of childhood? Take your time and think more about it. In the meanwhile, we will go to our next video.